Hi, this is Douglas Cito. I wanted to take a moment to thank Sharon Anderson, President and CEO of Williamstown Bank, for sitting down with me and having a conversation. We talked all things banking. We talked about the SVB situation that recently happened. We talked about how they're working inside their community with the Giving Cup. We talked about retaining and recruiting employees for the bank internally. And we talked about how to reach out to the younger generation in banking. I really enjoyed my time with Sharon, and I hope you guys do as well.
I appreciate you taking the time to catch up. When we saw your post, it went viral. You had a lot of people talking about SVP. It was the intent?
Yeah, that was the intent. No, it was not the intent. No, it was not the intent. Just
Sometimes
a rant.
We have to say things that maybe everybody else doesn't want to say, right? Or at the end of the day, we are, as an institution or as a company, really passionate about community bank space, right? And so when John showed me the post, he was like, "Look, she gets it. She's what we, really embody. Williamstown Bank is, they're an integral part of the community. She seems like she gets that. It's a very big part of our message as a consulting firm is." And I don't know if you were ever shared with you our slogan, but we say as part of our branding, we say that a profitable community bank makes a prosperous community, right? And so when we heard about you guys and saw your post, it was like, we got to talk to her, if we could do that. How long you've been with the bank? How long?
I have been with the bank. I'm in my 22nd year. I actually started as a part-time receptionist my senior year of college from a temp agency. So I don't think you can, go much lower on the pole than that. And they offered me a full-time job as a receptionist after I finished school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so 22 years later, I'm still here.
Right. Well, and the space, the banking space has really evolved in 22 years, right?
Absolutely.
So I always talk about the Wild West, and there were 3 or 4 staples in a community in the Wild West. One of those staples was probably your bartender, and that was kind of the the neighborhood counselor, for your community.
Yeah.
And then another one was a police officer, or the sheriff of a town. But one of the biggest pillars in the community was the banker.
Absolutely.
Right. Everybody turned to the banker for advice. Everybody turned to the banker to, get their first home, to open up their business and stuff like that. And so I think that community banks continue to play a huge role in the growth of a community and and just being the foundation of a community. So tell me a little bit about how your bank started, right? So you guys are a couple $100 million in assets, right?
Yeah, we're about $215 million in assets now. Wow. We started back in 1919. So back in 2019, we celebrated our 100th anniversary, and I think we started like most community banks start out. They realized, a few members of the community realized they needed a bank. And so we started out as a farmers and merchants bank, and then became Williamstown National Bank, and then went to a state charter in 2007. So we dropped the national and, have remained Williamstown Bank. We're one of the few locally owned and operated banks left in our area. And obviously those are disappearing every day across the country. Right. And so it's my hope that we remain independent and locally owned, because I feel like that's how we best serve our customers is having that ability and flexibility to do what we need to do for our market, not what we're being told to do from a corporate headquarters in a concrete village hundreds of miles away.
Right. Or pressured, by regulators to run a bank a certain way. Right. I mean, I think regulators in the banking community generally would like to see less community banks.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I mean, our banking system's unique, right? We have thousands of banks and credit unions in the country, unlike any other banking system in the world. And I think the if the powers be had their way, they would whittle us down to half the size or even less, right?
I agree.
And they do that. They encourage mergers and acquisitions. They encourage these big banks. They encourage behavior maybe that SVB had,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write the SVP article though? At the end of the day, were you just like, community banks are getting a bad rap?
I think, to be honest, that came at the beginning of March, and I had literally just finished an FDIC exam. And we have a very good group of examiners here in West Virginia, both on the state and the FDIC level, and we work well with our examiners. But I think I was just going over in my mind what steps I had to take and the conversations I had to have with those examiners about how we manage our risk as a $215 million bank.
Yeah.
And the modeling that we do and the stress testing that we do and the liquidity stress testing that we do and all of these, how would I pivot in a rate environment of an instantaneous 400 basis point decrease, or what would we do? What's our balance sheet makeup? And I think just at the very beginning, and that was before a lot of information really came out about SVB, but my immediate question was, how can you invest in all of these? I mean, we all had influx in cash in 2020, 2021. Right. I get that. Yeah. But putting all of your eggs in one basket, and I guess seeing that from the get-go too, they also had such high concentrations of uninsured deposits. Yeah. And just thinking about, okay, this is going to cost me because I'm going to end up bailing out the bad behavior of yet another large bank in the way of increased assessments. Right. And I literally was just sitting on my couch and just, I guess, started writing and didn't realize that it was gonna maybe hit a nerve with so many people that felt the same way. And I'm very passionate about community banking. I'm passionate about what we do in our communities. And I think also in that there was the media probably contributed to my rant a little bit, just in the idea that they're putting large regional banks in the same bucket as the small community banks, when SVB at the time it failed was the 16th largest bank in the country. Right. By, $200 billion. Okay, we're $200 million. You can't put us in the same bucket. So it just, I think, was probably some pent-up frustration on the idea that, this behavior from SVB was evident from an outsider's perspective. Right at the very beginning of this word coming out about their failure.
Yeah. And a lot of community banks got punished, from a stock and shareholder perspective. I think they're clawing back now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the questions that we got for the whole probably next couple weeks after that happened, we were approached by customers. Is my money safe? Do I need to move my money? And they're hearing on the media. You had the board member from Chase, I believe it was, saying, well, we don't need these small banks and you should just move all of your money to the larger banks. And you had all of these outlets implying this, we're going to secure the deposits of systemically important banks. And people were asking, okay, well, what's my money doing? Is it safe? Or what are you guys doing? And I was very open. We just had an exam and these are the things that we talked about, and these are the things that we showed them. And we have less than 10% of our deposits uninsured. They had over 90%.
I know,
we have a
crazy.
Diversified portfolio. We have multiple lines of business that we do. We're not concentrated in high-risk startups like SVB was, or in crypto like Signature Bank was. And we just went through and we actually started printing off FDIC calculators. We'd go through each person's account and they would be able to leave with a piece of paper in hand, knowing that their deposits. And I had multiple people in my office, asking about that. And I just think that there was so much misinformation put out there by the media and maybe people who don't really understand community banking, that we needed to be out here raising our voices saying, wait a minute, this is a completely different scenario and story. This is why this wouldn't be apt to happen here. And we had to defend ourselves because we
Sure.
were being put in that same, well, they're a small bank, even
Right.
though I don't consider them a small bank.
Well, at the end of the day, you're doing what I call, kind of fundamental banking. I mean, you're doing the right things in banking, a
Right.
diversified portfolio, right? Not getting spread too thin on one part of the market or another, being conscious of rates, doing the proper testing and stress testing. That's banking 101. That's blocking and tackling. You're
Right.
doing the right things as a community bank. So
Yeah.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Well,
But everybody thought that you're to your point, right? Everybody thought that every bank was SVB, but
Right.
that's not true.
right.
Right.
Well, and I think just having to defend everything that we do as a community bank and our practices, and knowing that we had just gone through, had I behaved in the way that the executives of SVB had behaved, or misled my organization, I'm not considered too big to fail, and I very likely might be in jail.
Yeah,
Some of that same
that's right.
behavior. And I come to work every day and try to do what's best for our bank and for our community, and not with self-interest at heart. And I
Sure.
think it's just so disappointing that we were blended in with, the behaviors and the practices of a bank like SVB.
Well, I totally get it. I totally get it, and I think it's inspiring that you were had a voice to speak up and you got attention, and I think that's really good.
Thank you.
I hope this infuses the rise of community banks, right? I hope that people look at these larger banks and say, are they operating in our best interest?
Right.
Are they protecting my money, and are they operating properly? I had a good friend of mine say something not so long ago that says, how do you know that your large bank isn't investing in foreign entities?
Right.
That may or may not be, aligned with our country's values.
Right.
But they look at it as an investment, and it's going to have a return. But where's that money going out of some of these larger institutions? Where is it getting invested around the globe?
Right.
So I hope that community banks rise up in this. I hope that depositors continue to see that people like Williamstown Bank are doing it right.
I think they are. We here over the last year, and especially, March, we opened our highest number of accounts ever in March. Now, we've done some rebranding, and, we came out with a new logo to kind of better reflect who we've evolved into over the years.
Right.
That was in July of last year. Last year we had our largest loan production year ever. And for a small bank like us, 2020 was a really bad year for us. We didn't have the capacity to do the PPP at that point in time, but we made, and we have a lot of real estate investors, people that weren't sure if they were going to get rent from their tenants during the moratorium on eviction, for example, and we lost loan balances. We didn't lose customers. We just had a lot of our customers pay down debt as a way to hunker. And 2020 ended up not being the best year financially for us from an income perspective. But we made the decision to keep our employees and to pay them, even though, when we were split shifts, they were only, maybe working 25 hours a week. And early on, it was, well, if we let them go, we're not ever going to get them back. Right. And, I was named into this role 2 weeks before COVID hit, early March of 2020. And that was probably the first major decision, I had to make. But I feel like it has allowed us to actually show that we were able to pivot even as a small bank and with what we're doing in our area. And then I think also just the relationship base that, we have. People are first. And I think people are now, you saw a turn to, I want everything online and I want everything immediate, but I think you're starting to turn back. Well, it's great on the front end, but what happens when I have a problem or when I have a question?
Sure.
So I think community banks as a whole really stand to profit and gain from this, because I do think it's making people maybe think a little bit more, where is my money going? And what are they doing with it? And are they investing it in something that is going to help me? Is it going to help my community? Is it going to give back? And I think, is it safe? And I think that the community bankers, the ICBA and the community bankers across the country have really raised their voice as a result of this. And I think
Right.
you're hearing it loud and clear. And I think when you are united with a voice such as, ICBA and community banks, community bankers across the country, you become a lot louder in the media and in the mainstream. And I think that's where we're at right now.
Good. I 100% agree. And we've seen a lot of our clients do the same thing, start having a louder voice, really reassuring their depositors that they're doing the right thing. And it's been fantastic to work in. We've been in the community bank space for 28 years.
Yeah, I saw that.
As a company. So we've had a lot of fun to work with all kind of community banks around the country from 20, 25, 20 billion, and below. And that's where most the banks and credit unions are. I mean, I always tell people when they drive around, you see all these big banks on the side of the road, right? But there's less than 24 of them, right?
Well, and they're leaving. I mean, they're pulling up, and we've had several closures here recently of a large regional bank, of offices that had been around for a long period of time, and so
Good for
they're
you.
picking up and leaving town and closing offices, and so the office, for example, we have 3 offices. We'll be opening our 4th in June, and the third office that we did something a little bit different and kind of, okay, let's see if this would work, was a result of a larger bank leaving. The community needed a bank. Okay, it fits our market, it fits our culture. Let's go in and give them what they need. And so you have community banks literally filling the spaces that these large banks, these voids that these large banks are leaving. And again, I think people are going to start taking notice. When you just leave one office or an ITM in an area of 80,000 people, that's not serving that
Community.
market.
Yeah. So tell me about that, because I was given a tip that you guys are starting a new branch. I looked at, I think I saw a video that maybe you did, and you were talking about bringing some new technology into the bank, right? Because the banking landscape is certainly shifting. I think back to the community banks. I think it's again, SVB and stuff has happened, but there's also this other shift happening in community banks right now, which is there's this younger generation that we're trying to bank, right?
Exactly.
And they bank differently. They sometimes may or may not care about ever seeing a branch ever in their life, right? And they're very comfortable with just having, they're just very comfortable having everything on this, and they conduct all their life on that, from social media to banking. So what are you guys doing in the technology space to get those that younger generation of banker to want to come to a Williamstown Bank?
I think that's such a multifaceted question. There's so many things that we're trying to do from the inside out. I think we as community banks have to understand that we can no longer say, well, these are our customers, they're not going anywhere. We've all had people my mom has Amazon Prime. She does a lot of her shopping online now, and she's not afraid to go outside and look at, other ways of doing things than what she's done in the past. And I think that there's still a huge want to say that, well, these are our customers, they're not going anywhere. But I think if you look at your numbers, we're not competing just with the banks in my immediate market. I'm competing literally with almost every bank and credit union across the country right now.
That's right.
And what are we doing to make sure that we're positioning ourselves now to stay relevant and viable, not just for 5 or 10 years down the road? It's my goal, and I'll admit, okay, I'm 43. I want to be able to walk out of my office when I'm 60, 62, or whenever I decide to retire. I still want this to be Williamstown Bank. And what are we doing now to position us to compete with those larger institutions? And the technology, I think, is a huge aspect of it. We've implemented a network of interactive teller machines, ITMs.
Yeah.
That was a huge benefit for us. We had intended to bring up a couple at a time. because we replaced all of our ATMs and added some of those in our drive-throughs. Our new office has a non-traditional floor plan that didn't have a teller line because we were doing a coffee shop, and so the ITMs were critical to that. And when COVID hit, that office opened literally a month before COVID hit, and we were hoping to bring one at a time up. And as shutdowns happened, let's bring all 10 of them up at once. And we were on a dime able to pivot. We were able to expand our hours. We were able to have coverage when people or offices went down with COVID, but also just not afraid to try new things. And, whether it be a really nice digital banking app that they can do the things like the P2P and the mobile deposits and bank anytime they want, but also knowing we have all of this technology, but you still get a live person when you call and need help. It's a very much blending the relationships and the foundation that we're built on as a community bank with that next generation of technology and innovation, and trying to do things in a way that allow us to consistently give back to our community in ways that maybe aren't the norm.
Right, like a coffee shop.
Yeah, like a coffee shop. Yeah.
So that's a cool idea. Like we run into a lot of different community banks that are doing things, and we like to participate, with our community banks and helping them. So we reach out after we do an engagement. We try to go do something with them in their community. If it's help them support a charity event, or if it's to donate money to something that's important to them. We think it's really important. And you're the first time I've heard the coffee shop, right? So tell me about it, because it sounds fascinating, and it sounds like other people should learn from this lesson.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, first and foremost, I cannot take credit for it being our original idea. There is a bank up in Ohio that I had heard about years and years and years ago that was doing this donation-based coffee shop. When this large regional bank left our area several years ago and we decided to move into this, it's a more rural market several miles outside of town.
Right.
And it was, okay, this is our chance to do something different, and what do we want to do? And the idea behind the coffee shop is really twofold. So at the Giving Cup, rather than buying your coffee, and it's a Highline coffee shop, you can get everything that you would get at a Starbucks. You can get the protein powered, the almond milk, any type of, we have specialty beverages, espressos, but rather than buying your coffee, you make a donation to one of our beneficiaries. We currently have 4 beneficiaries. 100% of the donation goes to that beneficiary. So we're funding the barista, the utilities, the coffee, but you get to give that back. And the idea behind it was also, in a way, how do we, in a day and age where everyone wants, like you said, everything on their phone, how do we get that foot traffic, and how do we drive the younger demographic in? Everybody loves coffee. And so, the idea that you're able to bring them in, we're able to walk them over to the ITMs, show them how they work, just engage in conversation. There's been multiple times you have someone coming in maybe daily for their cup of coffee, and then, I'm thinking about buying a house. Can I ask you some questions? And we would love to help you with that. Banking is not one of those industries that's always top of mind. I can think about ice cream all day long because I love ice cream, but banking is a service that until you need something, you're not necessarily thinking about it. So the hope was getting them in the door, building relationships, having the ability to donate to something that we can give back to on a recurring basis, those partners working with us and helping promote the idea of it. And so it really works twofold. And we're really excited as to where, again, this office opened a month before COVID. We spent, in our area, our lobbies were closed for about 10 months, so it was not the best timing for a new office. But despite that, 3 years later, in celebration of Community Banking Month, I just gave out over the course of this month over $5,000 to all of our beneficiaries from people coming in and donating for their coffee. And, when you have our newest one, for example, is a local child advocacy center, and they do forensic interviews of children who have been sexually abused, physically abused, and it's a safe place for them to give their story one time. And they tell me last week that a grant that they had been receiving for multiple years has been unexpectedly reduced by $14,000. Now they're scrambling to figure out what's getting cut and what's staying in our budget. and you consider last year alone in our area, they served 618 kids, and that's not even scraping the surface.
Right.
That's a real need, and I can do something about it. We have a platform that we can use. Why aren't we doing that? And I feel that's the heart of community banking, and that's where I feel we need to be showing our strength is this is what we're doing for our local communities. We're not up and leaving. In fact, we're planting our roots even deeper and trying to find ways to give back. So that was really kind of the heart and soul behind the Giving Cup. And, I'm excited to get our second location open with it here in June, because I feel like that's going to allow us to help our current beneficiaries even more and add some additional beneficiaries moving forward.
Right. So it's interesting because you're also talking about it's amazing, right? So you're giving back to the community, you're supporting charities in your community. You're also transforming a branch at exactly the same time, right? Because you mentioned a non-traditional branch, no teller line, right?
No,
and we see that there's a couple vendors that we've worked with over the years from a consulting perspective that are envisioning what a new branch looks like. And there was always jokes probably 5 and 6 years ago that the new branch is going to look like a Starbucks.
Yeah.
And you've done it, right? You have a branch that is less traditional, more engaging probably for a younger generation, which is fantastic.
It's
and you're doing good for good for the community.
Yeah, it's not beige. You go in, it's full of color. It's got open seating. It's got a pergola outside. So on nice days, today it's sunny and 71. We've got public Wi-Fi available. So it's really designed to be, there's a conference room that allows the community, if you're a nonprofit or a small business, you can use the room free of charge, because a lot of nonprofits especially maybe don't have the meeting spaces that they need. Small businesses the same. But again, it draws those people in. And the idea that, I said just this month alone, we've given out over $5,000. And in the 3 years we've been open, not considering the 10 months the lobby were closed, we're approaching almost $28,000. That 100% of that is going back to our community. And, the elementary school, that's one of our partners, have created an accelerated reading program and training opportunities for their teachers. You have a local one we just did today. It's a local organization that works with those with developmental and mental disabilities and making sure that they're given opportunities in our area, and they're using it to help fund a summer day camp. So you can see those dollars being put to work in our community. And it's not just some gimmick. We're doing it because we care about the community that we're in, and we understand that if we're not here to support those entities locally, who's going to do it? And so the more you use the national retailers and the online avenues, I feel the more we're hurting our own communities, because those services are still needed, regardless of what else is going on. Those services are important to our community. And
how do you communicate to your marketing communications and to your customer base their impact by coming to the branch, to the Giving Cup, and all that stuff? How do you communicate that back out? Because I'm sure they'd love to hear that.
Yeah, it's a mix. First of all, those receiving the donations, the beneficiaries, they use their channels, and every time we are able to do a check presentation, they're able to say, this is what we're using this money for. And so that's really kind of helping get the word out. And I think it's just, we've always been heavily involved in our community. This just allows us to do so, especially for our beneficiaries, on a more consistent basis. And really building a social media network, a relationship network with local media, and just encouraging the buy-in from our employees. I think the most recent campaign we were helping one of our beneficiaries with, that Child Advocacy Center, was a local drive, a high five drive, and let's see how many hands we can get donated. And our team killed it. We're going to make an announcement just as to how well they killed it. But explaining, culture starts from within. And I think one thing that a lot of businesses, regardless of the industry, don't realize is, at the end of the day, my employees have to come first. Like, we have to understand that they have to be happy, that they want to be in a culture that they feel like they are engaged and that they have say in what we're doing and that they can buy in. And when I have 50 people buying in and talking to outside people, whether they're customers coming in the door, at the dinner table at night, about the things that the bank is doing for this organization or this organization, word of mouth is still the best proprietor, I feel, of this kind of stuff in our community. And we've worked really hard to try and build a strong internal culture that then is reflected through our customer service and through our involvement in the community. So I think it's very much part of who we are from the inside out. And I think that's, if people see that, and one of the things that I hear a lot is when people, whether they're meeting us, in a situation like this, or out on the street, or they've maybe seen our commercials that are on TV, they say, "You're authentic. We can see that you guys are authentic. We can see that you're passionate. You love what you're doing, and it's not a gimmick." And I think there's, again, so much, and artificial intelligence, yes, I know it can do a lot of things, but I don't think that it can replicate true compassion for others. And I feel that from the beginning of our business and from our board level down, very much there's a buy-in that community and relationships still matter. And when people meet you for the first time and what they say is, you're authentic and you're passionate, and we can tell that Williamstown Bank walks the walk. They're not just talking the talk. Sure. I can't think of any better way of reflecting who we are to our community than that.
Yeah. And you have a power and a strength in your community that these big national banks don't have, right? Because Absolutely. they can't be in every community, and they can't be giving, to every charity in every community, so they don't do it. And so, look, you've thoroughly impressed me, and certainly you can tell you're passionate about, your community and your people. And I think, people inside the bank you're exactly right. They're the heart and soul of your Absolutely. Kind of what you put out in the world is, starts from inside. Absolutely. So I think that's awesome. I really do. I'm just really impressed. One of the questions that what came to my mind as we talk about community and banks and stuff is, and it goes back to the SVB comment, what's your definition of community bank? Is it what size is it? How's it look? Is it a feeling? Is it a asset size? Is it a branch count? What's a community bank to you?
I think it can almost be boiled down to one thing, maybe a couple, but I think it ultimately boils down to, at the end of the day, and it does kind of go back to what we were just talking about in the way of culture. And I believe that a community bank is, relationship first. I believe that the customer comes first, that through treating our employees right and making sure that they're happy, that, they're then able to meet the needs of our customers, that our customers can come in and our employees know them by name, and right. They feel like they're not just a number. But I think one of the things that size, I think, there are a lot of larger banks that I know that very much, I believe, would fit more of a community banking mold than a regional bank mold. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, when I go into a bank and I have a question, such as what happened after the SVB crisis, what kind of access do I have to people that maybe can help answer questions? Do I have access to the CEO or to the CFO, or are they out in my community where, I can't go to church and someone not know right. who I'm affiliated with? And, there are many times it might be after a ball game, a local, dinner fundraiser, that you spend time answering people's questions about banking. And so I think it's just, does your community know who you are? And do they know who you are on a personal level? And I think that that's the biggest thing that community banks have going for us. We live and work and shop and eat in the same communities that you do. We know the market. We know what's struggling. We know when hard times come, we try to be the backbone and help fix that. And I just think that that's, you can't fake that, and you can't get the from the larger organization. So can you go into your bank and ask to see a senior level executive and have an open door? And my door is always open. It's, unless I'm in an appointment, I'm happy to talk with customers. I love getting to talk with customers. And I think that that's the heart and soul of community banking. What are you doing for where you live and the sports teams and the local nonprofit organizations? And are you walking the walk?
How are you, this is just a curiosity question, right? I mean, it sounds like you have a great, a good group of very talented people, passionate people, right? Mm-hmm. Job market's tough today.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Hiring people out there in the world, we hear it time and time again from our clients, they're having a hard time maybe staffing the branches like they'd like to, or finding reliable help, or, you have a whole generation of people that actually retired early, because of COVID. They decided to retire. So I remember reading something not so long ago that one of the reasons we have this kind of funny job crisis where we had a hard time filling positions is like 1 million baby boomers retired early.
Yeah.
Right. Which the job market wasn't ready for that. Right. So as we turned into COVID and there was people looking at their retirement and seeing all these crazy things happen, they're like, look, I'm out, and they drop off the table, and they're done. How are you finding your talent? How are you finding those passionate people that want to be part of Williamstown Bank? Like, what are you doing to recruit not customers, but staff?
I think, again, it all goes back to kind of culture. And, we have tried very hard over the years to promote from within and to give opportunity from within. If you look around, the majority of us that are in some kind of management position, a lot of us started out as part-time tellers or receptionists or in kind of entry-level roles. We've, tried to groom those people from within, and I believe that builds loyalty, but I think it has to go a step further. We hire people that offset. I don't know everything. I have a phenomenal commercial lender. I have a phenomenal head of IT. We make up an executive team that they're able to offset my knowledge gaps. And I think you have to understand that it's a team effort, and you have to be willing to know that you may not be the smartest person on the team and not micromanage. And, we have been really fortunate. If you look around and walk around our institution, you almost see one extreme or the other. We have a group of very seasoned, very experienced, loan officers and other officers that are within that 5-year maybe range of retirement. Mm-hmm. But then you look at our operations officer and our TOps officer and our financial officer and another commercial lender that we're grooming, and they're all 30 or under. So, what we're trying to do is take the experience and train those that need the technical skill or the knowledge. And then those that are the younger with the technology, then they can pitch in and help teach those with experience the technology, and kind of bridging those generational gaps. And the idea that, we have started mentoring programs. We've started programs when we did our ITM projects and our coffee shop project and all this. We actually created teams of people who were not officers, and we added someone from each area from loans and whatever, and they oversaw these projects, because so often we give them a dusted off, nice, clean. They don't have an understanding of what goes into putting that into place. Right. And so really letting them, steer the ship and ask questions and feel like they have a level of engagement. And I think, you can have all of the fancy bells and whistles you want in the way of benefits, but it all comes down to what kind of culture. And I think everyone wants to feel a part of something and feel their voice matters, and know that, hey, I might be able to ask a question or give some insight that they haven't thought about, and we take that serious. And I just think that, again, it goes back to that relationship first. And I feel that's really benefited us. People see that there's opportunity for them to learn and grow. we're not every time there's something open going out and filling it from outside. I think that can be very, discouraging. If I'm not going to stay at an organization if I don't feel there's opportunity for me to advance, if I want that opportunity, and they keep bringing other people in. So is there a time that does it take time to train? Absolutely. But I also feel you can build loyalty in that. And I think that that's the thing that can really make a difference when everyone's out there trying to find talent.
And it sounds like you're a product of that mentoring, and you're a product of that investment, right?
Absolutely.
So when you were starting at such a young age to with the bank, and then someone came alongside you, right, and recognized your talent, recognized your willingness to learn, right, and
Absolutely.
then from there you built upon that, and I think you went to college or did some banking college for quite some time. I think that was one of the things.
I was a history major. I was
Right.
gonna, I thought I was gonna teach. God obviously knew I probably was not gonna be a very good teacher, so
Yeah.
He put me in a different path. But it does, and I think too, a lot of times it's easy to get busy in the course of your day, and someone comes along with a question, and it's sometimes faster to do it or easier to do it yourself than to take the time and answer those questions. But I was a product of, okay, I have a question, probably to the point of people rolling their eyes.
Right, like,
But
oh,
like,
here she
here
comes
is
again.
and
Right.
or what idea does she have now? She's always coming up with something. But just the willingness to listen
Yep.
and to answer my questions, that engages me, and
Right.
that makes me feel that I'm contributing to the long-term success and viability of Williamstown Bank as a whole. And it's not just one or two people deciding the
Right.
path. We're trying to really integrate everyone who wants to have a voice in that. And,
Right.
I'm very much a product of that. And I could not be more appreciative for the opportunities that I was given and the trust that they put in me in a young
Sure.
age. And so I'm hoping that we can pass that on moving forward.
Well, guess what? I hate to tell you, but it sounds like you are a history teacher because you've learned from the past, and you're helping grow. The institution, and you're holding on to the 100-year history that you guys have, and you're building upon that. So you're in history, and you're helping it. You're a
Thank you.
teacher.
I appreciate
Well,
that.
well, you're a teacher too.
Yeah.
But you're a teacher too, right? You're building people below you.
Yeah.
You're helping them to elevate themselves inside the organization, right? You're
Absolutely.
using your platform to inspire other people outside the community and support people outside the community. You're right where you need to be. You're doing teaching. You're keeping hold of the past. You're focusing on and inspiring your community. And, you believe it or not, you're this battle-tested CEO that probably came in at one of the hardest times in the bank's most recent history.
Yeah, I mean, there's been jokes made because I am passionate. In fact, when we had a retirement dinner here not too long ago, one of our senior lender who was retiring gave me a box of tissues because it was known if there's a staff meeting, if there's a management meeting, especially during COVID and during all those
Sure.
times. Sharon's, I'm transparent. I try to be as transparent as I
Right.
can, and
Me
this is
too.
what's going
Me too.
on, and this is why we are where we are, and this is what we need to do to get out of it. And yeah, there were lots of times I would get emotional, and it's almost become a running joke. For the first at least a couple of years, from 2020, they joked my office was the den of tears. So I'm hoping that to change that, and it's if it's the den of tears, it's happy tears. But
It's happy tears.
but
Absolutely.
when you care about what you do and you care about your team,
Yeah.
and you see your team caring about our customers and who we are as an organization and how the community sees us, it's hard not to get emotional about it.
Sure.
And I think again that's one of the things a lot of businesses in general are missing today. They're just missing that human factor. And
Sure.
I don't think that we can be too human. I think that people need to see more of that in
Sure.
just life in general. So yeah.
And I think there's this movement out there though, right? That you look at companies like Tom's that makes the
Yeah.
shoes,
Yeah.
right? They have wild success, right? Or if you look at somebody like Bombas socks, for gosh sakes,
Yes.
where
Yes.
but people want to work with people. They want to buy products. They want to bank with companies or bank with banks like yourself that are making a difference and are doing something for the community and are giving back, right? I think this world is in some ways changed a lot. I think some people are losing touch, and there needs to be someone like yourself out there carrying the torch of do the right thing, and you can still do all the right things. You can still be very profitable as a community bank. You fit exactly into our slogan, right? You're a profitable, well-run community bank, and you're helping your community prosper.
Right.
Right.
Well,
and
at the
it's
end of-
amazing.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's who we've always been. And again, I tend to be, just because no one else wants to do the interviews sometimes, but it really is, there's no way I would be where I am without the team that I have. They're such an amazing team, and I
Sure.
can't brag on them enough, because they
Sure.
went through the valley with me, and they stuck by my side, and I would fight to the ends for them, because I feel that's what good teams do. You work together. You don't always agree, and that's okay, but you work together for a common goal, and you would take a bus for each other. And
Sure.
I think you're right. I think so many people are missing that in their lives. They almost don't know what to do with it when they see it.
Thanks for inspiring me today, and maybe at the same time, maybe some people get to watch this and be inspired by you as well. So I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for even reaching out. I learned a lot about your company. I'm a history major, so I did my research too.
Yeah.
But, I love working with other partners, whether it be other banks or other partners that believe in community banking as much as we do. And I think what you said earlier, it's all of us raising our voices together that make a difference and make people stop and say, wait a minute, maybe I need to rethink my bank and who I choose to put my money with. So I thank you for the opportunity just to share our story a little bit. We're always excited to have the opportunity to kind of to share why we are doing what we're doing and how we're doing it to try and better our community.